Welcome. You're listening to This Leader, the podcast. If you lead people and are seeking the transformational, high-impact secrets that will lead to greater joy and fulfillment in your work, will optimize your team performance, and will help you create a happy, highly productive workplace, then you are this leader and you're in the right place. I'm your host, Claire Laughlin, and each week my guests and I will explore the mindsets, techniques, and actionable strategies that will help you build the career, team, and organization of your dreams. Because I believe no one should have to suffer in a dysfunctional workplace. Let's get started. Hi there. Welcome to This Leader. Let me ask you a question. When you look at your calendar for the week, what do you see? If you're like most leaders I work with, you probably see back-to-back meetings stretching from early morning to late afternoon. And the thing is, if your meetings are truly useful and you're moving work forward, that can be really energizing. Because meetings are essential for quality collaboration and for innovation and for making real progress. There's really no better format than a good meeting. Yet far too often, our meetings are a waste of time. And we end up trying to do the essential work of collaborating or innovating using the wrong channels like Teams or Slack threads or really long emails with lots of CCs. What I hear every day is that meetings are not particularly useful for most people. And here are some of the most common complaints I hear. I want you to see if any of these resonate for you. First, there's agendas. Like, my meetings don't have agendas, or we have an agenda, sort of, but it's really nothing but a list of topics to discuss, right? Or we have an agenda and it's far too ambitious. We either skim over topics or we don't get to most of them. Or my meeting agenda is nothing but updates from everybody, and most of it is unnecessary for me to hear. Things like that, okay? Another typical frustration is this. We revisit the same ideas over and over again, and we're not moving work forward. We're not getting to clear outcomes. We're not following a pathway towards success. Or, we discuss things. We discuss everything, right? But decisions aren't clear, or the right people aren't even in the room. So some people think we did make a decision, others don't. And all of that confusion, my friends, it runs downhill. What's more, in most organizations, we're not doing a very good job about communicating the outcomes of our meetings in a way that really activates energy and keeps people engaged. We're really missing an opportunity there. So those are just a few of the typical complaints, but, they matter. They make us disengage from our meetings and we get bored. So honestly, if we're going to spend our time in meetings, our whole life in meetings back to back, let's make them truly useful. So one challenge is this, like most of us have never been taught how to design or facilitate an effective meeting. And it is an art. There is something to it. I'm not going to lie. But today I'm going to share a framework with you that'll help you radically improve your meetings immediately. And it's just not that hard. It all comes down to this. I want you to think about meetings as really just having the right conversations, the right kind of conversation with the right people at the right time. Making small shifts in how you approach meetings can lead to massive improvements in productivity, in decision-making, and team energy. People are going to want to come to your meetings when they're well-designed, well-facilitated, and when there's good outcomes from them. And who doesn't want more of that? Let's use our time wisely. So let's dive right in. I want to start by acknowledging something really important that's always present but invisible to most. And that's this. All good work follows a flow. So think about it. Work typically begins with someone identifying a problem or an opportunity. Somebody says, hey, we should do something about that. I think we need a new software system, or I noticed an issue over here, or gee whiz, there's a market opportunity we should be seizing, something like that. From there, we generate ideas. We should be generating ideas. How could we tackle this? And then from there, making decisions, which lead to creating plans, And then, of course, the implementation of those plans. And finally, we should be learning from our process and from the results. Now, each of these stages of work requires different kinds of conversations with different people. But what happens in most organizations? We don't differentiate between these different kinds of work, and we try to accomplish everything in one sort of catch-all meeting. We bounce between giving updates and maybe brainstorming a little bit, and then maybe decision-making, possibly doing a little planning, all with the same group of people, regardless of who actually needs to be involved. No wonder meetings feel so inefficient. We're just a little lost there. So here's the mindset shift I want you to make. Think about meetings as specific conversations designed to accomplish specific outcomes with particular people. Okay? Let me walk you through different meeting types that you might need based on where you are in that flow of work or the work process. So the first type of meeting is what I call an ideation meeting. This happens early in the process when you're identifying problems or opportunities and you're generating potential ways forward. The purpose of this meeting is clear, and it's to define the challenge, right? What is the problem we're solving, or what is the opportunity? Let's put some words to it so we all agree on what we are doing. Okay. And then brainstorming possible solutions. So for these meetings, you want people in the room who understand the context of the problem or the opportunity, right? And people who have creative minds, people who naturally might come up with ideas. You need diverse perspectives in that conversation, and you need psychological safety so people feel comfortable sharing their wild ideas and half-baked potential solutions. That's really important for this kind of meeting. So I'll give you an example. Imagine this. Imagine your human resources team trying to address challenges that you have with, I don't know, employee satisfaction. Like your latest pulse survey showed that scores are falling in several areas, but you don't know the real root cause of this, right? You might even think you know, but honestly, you haven't done the work and you don't really know what's going on. So this situation, it screams for an ideation meeting. You'll want to bring a diverse group of people together and explore. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't think that you know what's going on before you know what's going on. Try to first define the problem, like what's the real problem here? And then just imagine that problem could be coming from a variety of sources. And you want to generate potential, ways of addressing it. Like, what could it be? What could be going on here? One of the biggest failures in so many situations is that truly we rush to solve a problem when we don't even understand what's really happening yet. So the key, again, is to have the right people in the room, those close to the problem, those with different perspectives, and then create that space where all ideas are welcome. So starting here, right, at the beginning with a well-formed question or like, what are we trying to accomplish is really, really powerful. And then giving that question some space, right, so you can explore it and really come up with some creative potential ways forward. So once you've done that, you have a clear problem or opportunity statement, and you've generated a number of potential ways forward, you're going to want to move on to the next kind of meeting, which will be a decision-making meeting. In this meeting, you're going to refine your ideas and evaluate the options you've generated. And you'll compare those options to some kind of decision-making criteria, and then you'll make choices and trade-offs, okay? These meetings have a completely different purpose, and they require a different approach. You need to establish clear criteria for your decision. And then you need to ensure that you have the right information, right? So come to the meeting prepared with the right kind of background, and include the people who have the authority to decide or whose buy-in on the decision is essential. I mean, in essence, I always like to say, invite the people who will be impacted by the decision. But that can get a little unwieldy. So there's a little nuance to that. But in general, we want to involve people if a decision is going to impact them. So let's go back to that example I just gave. So after the ideation session that you have about why your engagement numbers are falling, your employee satisfaction numbers are falling, you'd convene a smaller group of leaders who have the authority to make decisions. And then you'd run this process where you sort of systematically compare different potential solutions to what we call decision filters or decision criteria. So let's talk about decision criteria. Your criteria might be something like this. Like I like to put a question up, like the best option will do what? What will it do? Will it target the departments with the lowest scores? Right? Will the best solution be the easiest and quickest to implement? Will the best solution allow us to experiment with different approaches? Or will the best solution cost the least? Or some combination of those? We usually have multiple criteria that we need to evaluate. But if you are able to define and make that criteria clear before you start your decision-making process, the decision-making process will be easier in the end because you won't have so much lack of clarity. People aren't arguing for different things because the criteria is not clear. You've got to make that criteria clear. That'll be really helpful. And again, notice that this decision-making group is probably maybe a different group of people than were in the original ideation meeting, because this conversation and this purpose are different, and it's at a different stage of work. We've done ideation, then we're into decision-making, right? Now, once you make a nice, clear decision, you're going to move on to a third type of meeting. And this is one of my favorites, but it's called a planning and enabling meeting. This is where, once a decision is made, someone needs to figure out the how. What steps are we going to take? What resources do we need? What is the timeline? Who's responsible to do what? It's a very tactical meeting, but it can be a lot of fun. And these meetings focus on breaking down the work and identifying the interdependencies between people and stages of, the implementation, assigning ownership, and establishing milestones. You need people who understand the operational details and who will be responsible for implementation, because they're the ones that can tell you whether it's possible to get this done. For these kinds of meetings, I love using visual tools. I love whiteboards and sticky notes. I love to get everybody in the same room and have us work together to build a work plan. But you can do this even virtually by using a shared digital workspace. Anything that helps make the plan concrete and visible to everyone. I want you to think about this as like rolling up your sleeves and really making the plan. Okay. Now, once the plan is set, you might have a launch meeting in which you communicate the plan and you really activate energy in the organization. Like a launch meeting it could be a large group meeting where you're just really laying out the why and how you're going to get there and all that stuff. Or it could be a series of small conversations where you're socializing the idea with the people who are going to be, impacted by the work. Ultimately, communication is key, and it shouldn't wait until this stage of work. But please don't forget that making a decision and making a plan are not enough. You really need to help get people on board emotionally, right? Don't forget about my last episode where we talked about people's different reactions to change and how being a responsible and thorough communicator will really help you reduce the negative impact of any change you bring forth. That's really important. So communication has happened, the planning's happened, you've really communicated well. Now the program's launched and you're in it. And the next type of meeting is an implementation meeting. I like to think of these as huddles, right? These are regular check-ins with the people who are doing the work and implementing the process during that execution phase. And it's basically like a routine, repetitive meeting where team members align on their immediate priorities, they identify barriers, and they make quick adjustments. These meetings should be very brief and focused and action-oriented. A good implementation meeting might only take 15 to 30 minutes, but it's regular and it keeps everyone on the same page, right? It keeps you moving toward the goal. These conversations involve the people who are doing the work usually, right? And they help everyone align to the work plan. And if you want to make this a lot easier, you need a standard agenda for these, right? Every Monday, we're going to meet and we're going to answer these specific questions. And every Friday, we're going to meet again and we're going to review. So a lot of this work can become much easier when you use standardized agendas, all right? Now, there's one more kind of meeting I want to talk about today, and that's called the learn and review meeting. after significant milestones or at the end of a project, it's really essential to reflect on what worked and what didn't and what you can learn for next time. Sadly, these meetings are often skipped, but they are crucial for continuous improvement. Plus, they add energy. They allow you to celebrate and acknowledge good work done. And they also allow everyone to speak honestly about challenges. These meetings need to be inviting and safe for all, and they need to focus on learning, definitely not blame. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Claire, this all sounds great in theory, but what about all of these standing meetings on my calendar? Like, the weekly team meeting, the monthly department update, the quarterly business review, right? Great question. Because these recurring meetings are often the biggest culprits when it comes to wasted time. Oh, committee meetings are another one. So take my advice. Take a hard look at each of your standing meetings and ask yourself, what is the real purpose of this meeting? That weekly team meeting, think about that. Is that primarily for updates? If so, could those updates be shared in writing instead? Or is it really a combination of updates and problem solving and decision making? And if that's the case, consider structuring the agenda to clearly separate these different kinds of conversations, right? Each of those purposes, problem solving, decision making, updates, each of those purposes has a different kind of a cadence to the conversation. It's a different structure of a meeting. So I worked with a company one time that totally transformed their dreaded 90-minute weekly team meeting. They started by sending updates in advance via email, which forced people to prepare. Okay. If you've got an update, you need to send it in advance, and it needs to follow a specific kind of a format that actually helps you, tell other people useful information. Okay. So they spent the first 15 minutes of the meeting addressing questions about those updates. So now we've shared these updates. Does anybody have any question? Right. And then they dedicated the remainder of time to either problem solving or decision making on a specific issue. And they identified clear outcomes in advance, and they decided in advance, what is the decision we need to make, right? So the result, their meetings went from 90 minutes to more like 45. And team members reported feeling much more engaged and that this was finally a really good use of time. Now, let's talk about making this practical. Here are 3 steps you can take to improve your meetings starting today. Step 1. I just want you to define the purpose and desired outcome of each meeting. Before scheduling a meeting, ask yourself, what specific conversation do we need to have? Is this about, do we need to generate ideas, or are we here to make decisions, or do we need to create a plan, or are we checking on progress, or are we learning from results? Okay. Where are you in the stage of work, and what specific conversation do you need to have? Then I want you to articulate a very clear outcome. I want you to kind of ask yourself this question. By the end of this meeting, what will we have accomplished? What will we walk away with? Will we have generated, 10 possible solutions? Will we have selected the top 3 initiatives to pursue in more depth? Will we have created a detailed plan or resolved 3 key barriers to progress? What are we doing in the meeting? The more specific you can be about your desired outcome, the more focused and productive your meeting will be. If you just do this, it's going to be very powerful. Okay, step 2, invite the right people. No more and no less. A lot of times, we want to be inclusive, so we invite a whole bunch of people to the meeting. And while I'm all for including people, I know that we suffer because there's way too many meetings on our calendar, and we shouldn't probably be in all of them. So once you know the purpose of a meeting, it becomes a lot clearer who needs to be in the room. For an ideation meeting, you want diverse perspectives, and you want people who can think kind of big picture and creatively. For decision making, you need the decision makers in the room and the key stakeholders. And for planning, you need the people who are going to actually execute the work. Be intentional about who you invite, because every unnecessary person in a meeting not only wastes their time, but it can actually make the meeting less effective by adding complexity to the conversation. I mean, Okay, so you've probably heard of this, but I love Amazon's approach. They use the 2 pizza rule, right? If it takes more than 2 pizzas to feed the group, the meeting's too large. I guess it depends on the size of the pizzas. But anyway, just think about being selective in who you invite. And by all means, when you're clear about the purpose of the meeting, let people know we're having this meeting, you're optional or that kind of thing, or just wanted you to know about it, that kind of thing. So that people do feel included, but they don't feel obligated to show up to every meeting. Okay, step 3, structure the meeting process to match the purpose. Because different kinds of conversations require different approaches. An ideation meeting needs techniques that encourage creative thinking, and we have to help people build on ideas and do actual brainstorming, not just listing things, but real brainstorming. Whereas a decision-making meeting needs some kind of a structured evaluation process. And a planning meeting needs tools for breaking down work and assigning responsibilities and all that kind of thing. Those are 3 very different meetings. Please don't default to that standard like discussion, or go around the room, that kind of thing. People far too often over-rely on discussion as a process. I want you to try to design a process that will actually get you to your desired outcome. So I've created templates for different kinds of meetings that you can download from my website. You'll find the link in the show notes. So I want you to go check those out because just having these templates will help you see how the meetings are designed quite differently. I mean, they're just suggestions and they're not going to work for everything, but they're going to give you an idea of flow. The templates include suggested time allocations and a process and some key questions to ask for each meeting type. Now, I want to acknowledge something really important. Changing how meetings happen in your organization isn't always easy. You might face some barriers along the way. In fact, I'm sure you will. So maybe you're not the meeting organizer, so you don't feel like you have the authority to change things. In that case, I just encourage you to try asking questions like, hey, what's the main thing we need to accomplish in this meeting? Or would it be helpful if I suggested a structure for our time together? Something like that. Or maybe you feel uncomfortable taking on a facilitation role. That's very natural. Facilitation, it's a skill like any other skill, and it takes practice. But start small by suggesting a clear agenda or offering to keep time for a part of the meeting or something, or take notes, right? And as you build confidence, you can take on more active facilitation roles. The most common barrier I hear is this, like, we don't have time to be this intentional about our meetings. But I would challenge that thinking because it does take a few minutes to clarify the purpose of a meeting and to design an appropriate process. But those few minutes can save hours of unfocused discussion and follow-up meetings to resolve what wasn't accomplished the first time. Plus, when you understand how to facilitate a meeting in each stage of work, and you just identify what stage of work you're in, you're already halfway there. Now you just need to apply what you know and use those templates that I'm offering you, okay? When you make these simple shifts, you'll find much greater satisfaction in every meeting, and you'll probably reduce your meeting time significantly, freeing you up for other important strategic objectives. And you'll find that your meetings are much more engaging and better attended as you become a person known for using people's time well. So here's my challenge to you this week. Pick one recurring meeting on your calendar that isn't as productive as it could be. Apply the framework we discussed today, like identify the stage of work. Are you ideating or deciding? Are you planning or launching or implementing? Or are you learning? And then clarify the purpose. Right? We are here to do what? And the desired outcome. We will walk away with what? A decision, right? Ideas. What will you walk away with? And then make sure you have the right people in the room. You just need to structure your conversation to achieve your outcome. I'll bet you'll be surprised by the difference that this makes. And once you experience that difference, you can start applying that framework to more and more of your meetings. So that's it for today. If this episode helped you, please share it with another leader because everyone seems to struggle with meetings. And don't forget to visit my website for those meeting templates I mentioned. The link is in the show notes below. Thank you so much for listening. And until next week, go lead the way. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about my services and for lots of free resources and additional tools to enrich your journey, visit my website and subscribe to my newsletter at clairelaughlin.com. If you have a question about leadership, teams, or organizational culture you'd like me to address on the podcast, please reach out to me at support@clairelaughlin.com and connect with me on social channels at Claire Laughlin Consulting. Until next time, lead the way.